Welcome back. So, ever tried to click a checkbox manually and thought how hard can it be to automate? And then Selenium said challenge accepted. So, in this video, we are diving into everything you need to know about handling checkboxes with Selenium and how to select, deselect, and verify states, even handle the hidden ones. We had seen all of those in radio buttons. You can select multiple checkboxes, whereas in radio, you just have to select one. So we are going to see all of those in today's video. And let's get started with our checkboxes examples, right? So it's going to be almost similar to what we had seen in the radio button. For the checkboxes, we can use the same page. I had created it has examples for both radio button and checkboxes. The first example that we have here is so finding is the same way how you are going to find it using an XPath ID or CSS selector, anything you can use. So in my case, I have taken the example of this particular newsletter, the CHK News. So if I inspect these and you see this is CHK News. So the first one is CHK News. The problem here using .click method is if even in your case also this can happen. So if your input is wrapped with a label, right? So you won't be able to click the input button directly using the click method. So you have to click on the label of that particular input checkbox. So we are also going to follow the same approach. You can also use the JavaScript that we had seen in the radio button approach, but it would be hard for you to follow your business workflow if you are just say you have to validate, like scroll to an element and then click on it whether it is visible or not. So Selenium would directly inject the JavaScript in your browser, but the entire business flow is challenged there, right? You might not be able to verify everything in that approach. So we had discussed everything about it. If you are new here and if you haven't seen the other radio button examples that we just did, you can check out my previous video. I have talked about all of these things in detail. This one is just going to be a walkthrough of whatever we had done. So it's all the same command and just the element is different. So it's a checkbox this time, right? So what we are doing here is we are just checking whether it is selected or not. So we just wrote as is selected and it would return me true or false. The same element we are checking whether it is selected. So if it is not selected, I am going to click on it and select it, and then I am printing whether it returned me true or false. Now in the next one we had done just the opposite of it. If the checkbox is selected, so I am going to again click on it and I am going to deselect it, right? In the fourth one, what we are going to do here is, so all these are using just one specific keyword is selected, right? This is one keyword. Now the second one that we are seeing here is looping through a group of checkboxes, right? What happens here is, if you see a group of checkboxes here, let's say this one, right? So if you inspect this, so there would be a common attribute that they share to make them aligned to a particular group. So if you see here, I have used a class here, which is the same for all of the checkboxes. So similarly, in my script also, I am going to use the same approach. Okay, so when I am looping, I am going to find elements using a CSS selector dot grouped, because grouped was the class. Now for each checkboxes in my group checkbox, I am going to have the ID extracted from the web page, right? Then I'm checking if the ID exists and the checkbox is not selected. Then I'm going to click on that particular label and I'm just printing the label's name, right? So what have we done here? We are checking whether the checkbox ID is present or not. Then we are checking if it has an ID, and if it is not selected, then we are going and clicking on that particular checkbox, right? In the third one, we are checking whether it is enabled or not. Okay, so if at all it is disabled, it is going to throw me an error. So this is a disabled checkbox. So what happens here is I am going to check here whether this particular checkbox is disabled or not. I'm not performing any action on it, just checking the status. All right. So, and in the next one is again lazy load that we had checked. So let's first run the first few examples that we just discussed. So I'm going to comment, right click, run. Now it opens the application. Okay, it checks on this checkbox, wait for some time. All right, checked on the group checkboxes, and I think it ended the execution. Yeah, it ended. So let's review our result. So what happened here? So in the first one, check if selected. So what happened here? It returned me false. That means it is not selected. So in the second one, it went ahead and clicked on the checkbox, and it printed true here in the second one. Now come to the third one, unselect only if selected. What happened here? This is again my checkbox, and you have to what did we do here? We just unchecked it, right? So we unchecked it and then we checked for its state. It said it is false. That means it is not selected. Now next one, we looped through the text of looped through the checkboxes using the class value, right? So we use the class value to loop through multiple checkboxes, and it printed me the 3 checkboxes that were listed there, option A, B, C, right? So if you see the application, you have 4 checkboxes. Then why did I get only 3? The reason is simple, because only these 3 checkboxes are in this class group. This one doesn't have a class. Select all doesn't have a class. That's the reason it didn't include this. Now there are other ways also how you can include this. So if you want, you can also write an XPath which points to this particular grouped section, and this grouped section you can figure out how many checkboxes you have here. Let me show you how you can do that. So this is the checkbox, or this is the area, or this is the division tag that we are targeting, right? So let's first see what is the XPath that it is generating. So let me just control F, and no, this is not. So let's say we have this division class called field. So we know the field's position here, right? So we can write an XPath for this. So let's say we have a division tag and we have @class is equals to, what is the class? Field, right? So this will point me to how many elements? 1, 2, 3, 4. So there are 6 elements, right? And mine is where this is not the one, this is not the one, this is the one, the fourth one. So I'm going to use the reference of fourth. So this is pointing to this area, right? So you see, it has specified an area that I'm targeting, this particular field area, right? Now in this, I need to figure out how many checkboxes we have. So how do you figure out how many checkboxes we have? We'll give a slash. We'll say what I want, input tag, right? So input tag, and what input tag we want? We want of type checkbox. So we'll give @type is equals to checkbox, right? Now if you see, it says 1 of 4. So it's able to figure out that it has 4 checkboxes. So this is how you can locate if this is the case where kind of not all the checkboxes are included in the class, right? But you still need to loop through all of the checkboxes. So you can use a certain property as a limiter, and from there you can drill down to only the checkboxes you wanted. This was the fourth one, and the fifth one we handled the disable checkbox. So we checked whether it is enabled or not. It returned me false, right? So these were the 4 examples that we just executed. Now let's comment all these 4. I don't want to rerun them. Now moving on to the next part of it. So what are we doing here? So this is again the dynamic or the lazy load checkboxes we have. So until you scroll to that particular section of the page, the element is not visible. So what we are doing, we are first checking whether that element is displayed or not. So what we are expecting, it should return a false here. Now in the second line, we are going to scroll to a particular section. So this lazy section is not the entire page. So instead, it is just a section on it. So let's inspect, and I'll do a control F with that lazy section. So what is this lazy section? This is some other example. Yeah. So in here, let's paste this. So it figured out 2 of 2. Where was the first one? So this is the section, right? This is my lazy section, right? So we are scrolling to this particular section, and then we are locating the element, right? So here also we are scrolling to this particular section. We are waiting for 1 second. If you want, we can remove this. This is also not required. So, and again, we are rechecking whether that particular element is displayed or not, and then clicking on that particular checkbox. And then the last one is, again, before you submit a form, you just have to go and check whether what value you have printed or what value you have selected, and then you are clicking on submit button. So here what we are doing, here we are checking whether we have a check terms button, if that particular button is checked or not before submitting. If it is checked, then we are submitting. If it is not checked, we are just printing please agree to terms before submitting. Let's run this. It's coming up. Okay. So here if you see, it checked this particular checkbox, right? Now let's head back to my PyCharm. Now come here. This was the first print statement, which was supposed to be false because it was not displayed. So it printed false. And the second one is also false, right? So but we were expecting this to be true because it clicked on that button. Now a catch here is, or a concept to understand here is, displayed as inline and block, right? Which is changed during the execution of this page, right? So after this page loaded, then only a JavaScript was triggered to change these. So what happens is, JavaScript timers are asynchronous. So unless I explicitly wait for a display change, Selenium won't know that it happened. So as and when this is executed, it jumps to the next line, gets the value and prints it, right? So this can be handled better by using an expected condition and a wait. We are going to talk about that in the next few videos. But right now, it's returning me false in both. However, this should have returned me true, right? So this is something we are going to take up later while we discuss wait. Okay? Now for the next one, what we are expecting. So we were expecting to check this particular button, check terms. So in my UI, yeah. So here, check terms. Where is check terms? Yeah, agree to terms, right? This is my check terms. So this is right now unchecked. So that's why it printed me please agree to terms before submitting. So that's all I wanted to talk on the checkboxes in Selenium. So from basic selection to handling hidden or disabled ones. So now you know how to handle checkboxes, how to handle text, how to handle radio buttons. And we are going to talk more on how to handle alerts and say drop downs or the suggestive text boxes that we have in the next one, right? So if you found this helpful, give a thumbs up and subscribe to Learn with Psudo. And if you know someone who is struggling or learning in his automation journey, make sure you tag them along and you tag them to this video, right? So I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye.